Welcome back to the channel, subscribers. Dillian Whyte might lose his mandatory slot with the WBC for testing positive in his A sample for D-ball dem steroids. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel, subscribers. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, Patreons, please check out the new video that we uploaded over on Fanon's Boxing and Politics. Business in Politics, excuse me, where we talk, I do a little lecture on advanced negotiation skills, dealing with very difficult people that want to tell you no. Also, I want to say thank you to you so much to the new patrons, and also to the people that donate through the Cash App. Shout out to my man whose tubers is mine. Also, shout out to everybody that donates through the super chats and the live streams. Check out the live streams that we do every morning, Monday through Friday, and also Sunday morning OG Boxing Talk. This last weekend was a great one. Now let's get into this. Dillian, the dope fiend, doing dope. No, I'm just kidding. Dillian Whyte. We know that Dillian Whyte was so-called, first of all though, before I do that, I want to say thank you to Boxing Ego. Shout out to Boxing Ego. I did watch a video that he did about this morning. So you make sure you go check out his video, and also Lance Pugmire's tweets on the subject so you can get the background on this. Lance Pugmire, I guess, has spoken with, or Athletic Box, who is the media outlet that one of the media outlets that Lance Pugmire works with, interviewed Mauricio Sulaiman, and Mauricio Sulaiman said that they are going to be looking into the WBC, into what happened with the Oscar Rivas versus Dillian Whyte fight, and if they find that there was an issue with it and the process, and they don't like the process that took place, that it's within their power to revoke that mandatory status for Dillian Whyte for the WBC belt. And I'm telling you, I already believe that I know enough for that to be the case, okay? Dillian Whyte should not, that fight, and what they didn't say that they would remove Dillian Whyte from the mandatory, they said that they would eliminate that fight for being one that was considered to name the mandatory. Slight difference, but the effect is both, that they retroactively will remove the designation that they gave to that fight, which was a WBC title eliminator, I do believe what it was called. And as a result, the winner of that fight would not be the mandatory for Deontay Wilder. I don't know how that would affect Dillian Whyte's ratings within the WBC, but I think that that's the only way that you can go about this, is to revoke that, because they were not the WBC was not informed of the negatives, of the positive tests, or however they phrase that, the fact that there was metabolites, performance enhancing drugs in his test, that he tested positive for performance enhancing drugs. Okay, that right there, the fact that Eddie Hearn didn't inform them, that the British Boxing Board of Control didn't inform the WBC, that right there should tell you is more than enough reason for them to take that mandatory title, that mandatory status away from Dillian Whyte, away from that fight. There's been a lot of people talking about we need to be fair to Dillian Whyte. Wait until the B sample comes out and is tested before we make a decision about whether or not Dillian Whyte was actually intentionally, this is the nice little cute phrase they use, intentionally ingested performance enhancing drugs. That's not the test, whether he intentionally did it or not. It's whether or not it was in his system or not whether he did it on purpose. If you did, you are responsible for what goes into your body. However, I'm going to play a little word game with you, and I know I'm being a little funny with it, but that test is not the first test that came up negative, that came up positive for performance enhancing drug for Dillian Whyte. It's the third. because he already served a 2-year suspension for performance enhancing drugs. So if it happened one time, right? If it was an accident one time, it was ingested on accident one time, okay, maybe we can understand that that's an accident. But if it happens twice, no, man. You know the saying, once, shame on them, twice, shame on you. If it happens once, that could be an accident, shame on fate, shame on misfortune. You can chalk that up to an accident. But if it happens twice, then it's shame on you, because you didn't take the necessary precautions to ensure that it didn't happen again. Because it should be once burnt, twice shy. Once you realize that something can be put into your food or your take, I think Dillian Whyte said what he was doing before was that he wasn't making a lot of money in fights. So what he did was he was just taking stuff over the counter, things that you might get from whatever their health food stores or whatever their nutrition stores are. And as a result, there was something in there that was on the banned substance list. And that's why he tested positive. And that was his reason for doing that, for testing positive the first time. Obviously, they didn't buy it the first time because he got a 2-year suspension. But now you're making millions of dollars a fight, and you use that excuse the last time. You shouldn't get that excuse the second time. Now, that is assuming that, and I'm saying that's assuming that the B sample comes clean. If the A sample, to me, he might not get suspended if the B sample comes up clean, which my understanding is I've only heard of in like one case of a B sample coming up clean. Usually the B sample comes up dirty too, but I'm not quite sure what's taking them so long with the B sample. But as far as it relates to this WBC decision, it shouldn't even matter whether or not he had performance enhancing drugs in the B sample or not. Because when the fight took place, the only information that was known is that his A sample came up with traces of D-ball in the system. And right then and there, the WBC should have been given that information and should have been given the opportunity to determine whether or not it was going to allow its belt to be on the line. See, there's not only issues with whether or not Oscar Rivas should have been given the information, which is obviously an ethical issue, and obviously he should have. But there's also a question about whether the WBC should have been notified. If the WBC should have had the right to keep its name from being associated with a fight with a fighter that potentially was fighting with performance enhancing drugs. The WBC should have been notified, and right there, and that is enough for the WBC to rightfully say that Dillian Whyte is not the mandatory. Also, something else connected to this that I wanted to put out there. Vaughn Michaels, who is he's the Canadian promoter, and I do believe he's the promoter of Oscar Rivas, said that Oscar Rivas has never tested positive performance enhancing drugs. And anybody that is saying that is just using a smoke screen to deflect from Dillian Whyte's positive tests. That is for you, Spencer Fearon. It is absolutely shameful to throw around rumors about the other guy testing positive performance enhancing drugs when you don't have any actual knowledge of it. Throw it out there in the media and let people swim around and use all kind of excuses for Dillian Whyte, like blaming the other guy for a mystery test that he never failed. Just like these guys are doing with Deontay Wilder's brother, who never failed a drug test to anybody's knowledge, but somehow associating some penalty that some infraction that he got from the state of Tennessee, from Texas, that had nothing to do with performance enhancing drugs, somehow changing that into a performance enhancing drug violation, then assigning that violation to Deontay Wilder, and then using that assignment of that drug violation to Deontay Wilder as some way to justify what Dillian Whyte did, is accused and rightfully suspected of doing. Malice obfuscation, I mispronounced the hell out of that word. All of this nonsense going on. Dillian Whyte, the British Boxing Board of Control, Eddie Hearn handled it completely completely wrong whether or not the B sample comes dirty. This is not going to just if the B sample comes clean, it doesn't excuse any way, shape, or form what they did. Now, and with the amount on top of that, with the amount of crookedness and disregard for ethics. By the way, it's not morals, it's ethics. It's standards. It's the standard of interaction within people in a public setting. That's ethics. Morals is what you think about what is right and wrong yourself. Ethics is what you're doing within your profession, or what are you doing in a world when you're interacting with other people. That was unethical for the British Boxing Board of Control to allow Dillian Whyte to get into the ring under the cloud, under the valid suspicion of being under performance-enhancing drugs. It was unethical of them to have the WBC name associated with that fight without informing them of the circumstance. And honestly, it would be unethical of the WBC to allow that guy, somebody that won that particular fight, Dillian Whyte in particular, to be the mandatory title defender, mandatory challenger to Deontay Wilder, when you know this guy's already popped dirty 3 times. The A sample of the first time, the B sample of the first time, the A sample this time, which you could call the C sample, right? And that's 3 so far. And we'll see about the B sample. What's taken so long with this B sample, I have no clue, but it is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.